Welcome back! My name is Baller Scuba. This is Video Games Over Time. We are still in 1984. Today, we're going to talk about some more honorable mentions of 1984. In 1984, Choplifter was ported to the Atari 5200 and ColecoVision. Originally released for the Apple II, the Atari 5200 port was ported by Areolasoft, while the ColecoVision version was ported by Atari. On May 1st, 1984, Infocom released Sea Stalker to computers. Designed by Stu Galley and Jim Lawrence, Sea Stalker was marketed as an introduction to interactive fiction games for pre-teen players. In the game, the player plays as a young marine scientist that must save an underwater research facility from an attacking sea monster. The game did fairly well, however the game was seen as too easy. In 1984, Pitfall was ported to the Atari 5200. Ported by Activision, this third console version of the iconic game would not nearly be as successful as the other versions of the game. On May 1st, 1984, Nintendo released Golf to the Famicom. Golf was directed by Kenji Miki, produced by Masayuki Uemura, programmed by Satoru Iwata, designed by Kenji Miki and Shigeru Miyamoto, with sound by Koji Kondo. The player plays as a golfer that resembles Mario. While not named in the game itself, the character was said to be Mario in 1991. This is the first golf game to have both a power and an accuracy bar, and was received well at the time. Golf would be ported to arcades as Versus Golf in Japan on July 26, 1984, and in North America in October 1984. There would also be another version, known as Versus Ladies Golf, which was released to North American arcades on December 14, 1984. In 1984, Zaxxon was ported to the Atari 5200. While this was the fourth console port of the game that we have talked about, this was only the second console version that featured the iconic perspective of the original arcade game. On May 5th, 1984, Hasbro purchased Milton Bradley. Milton Bradley at the time had the rights to the Microvision and the Vectrex consoles. Those rights would then transfer to Hasbro. In 1984, the Star Wars arcade game was ported to the Atari 2600, Atari 5200, ColecoVision, and to computers. Imagic would develop most of these ports, with Parker Brothers publishing them. The exception is the ColecoVision version, which was ported by Wendell Brown. None of these versions would be particularly popular or particularly well received. In May 1984, Microsoft released Microsoft Flight Simulator 2.0 for IBM PCs. Designed by Bruce Artwick of Sublogic, this follow-up to the original Flight Simulator had some small improvements to the original, including some graphics updates and some gameplay updates, including joystick and mouse input. In May 1984, Burger Time was ported to the ColecoVision. Developed by Mattel and distributed by Coleco, this third console version of the 1982 arcade game would not prove to be as successful as the Atari 2600 version. On May 21, 1984, Atari made several big changes. First, Atari discontinued the Atari 5200. Originally released in November 1982, the Atari 5200 was never popular. It had difficulty distinguishing itself and its games from the more popular Atari 2600. Many of its games looked like the Atari 2600's games with small improvements, and no popular games were ever released exclusively for the console. By 1984, only 67 games were officially released for the console. In total, there would be 69 official games for the Atari 5200. None of them would be particularly successful. On top of that, the controller for the console experienced a variety of issues. In recent times, this controller has been judged by many to be the worst console controller in video game history. The console itself also frequently finds itself on lists of worst consoles of all time. It sold roughly 1 million units, far short of the sales of the Atari 2600, which still had higher annual sales than the entirety of the Atari 5200's sales. Despite coming in from the biggest name in the industry, and despite succeeding the most successful console in the industry, the Atari 5200 cannot be considered anything but a failure. Second, Atari discontinued the Atari Program Exchange, or APX. Started in February 1981, APX was a mail order catalog that was sent to all registered Atari computer owners once a quarter. It would list software that was available for purchase for their systems. It would not only feature professional developers, but also independent developers. It was how Eastern Front, which we played in previous videos, was released. However, APX would prove to lose money for Atari the longer it was published, so the service was discontinued. Third, and the main reason for these changes, Atari announced the Atari 7800. This console was not only designed to replace the failed Atari 5200, it was also designed to compete with the recent console competition on the market, particularly the ColecoVision. Along with the console announcement, Atari announced 13 games that would be launch titles for the system. Included in those games would be ports of Centipede, Dig Dug, Galaga, Joust, Ms. Pac-Man, Pole Position 2, Robotron 2084, Track and Field, and Xevious. Atari also announced several new games, including Nile Flyer, which was being developed by General Computer Corporation, as well as Ball Blazer and Rescue on Fractalus, which were both being developed by Lucasfilm Games. The original plan for the release of the Atari 7800 was for June 1984. It was being developed by General Computer Corporation at the time and was nearly complete when it was announced. However, we will have to return to the story of the Atari 7800 in another video. On June 21st, 1984, Nintendo released Family Basic for the Famicom. Family Basic is a consumer product designed for programming on the Famicom. It was designed and released with cooperation from Hudson Soft and the Sharp Corporation. It would save programs onto cassettes which could then be loaded to play games. It sold well in Japan, selling over 400,000 units total. On June 29, 1984, Conan the Destroyer was released to theaters. The sequel to 1982's Conan the Barbarian, the film proved to be less popular and received worse reviews than the original. However, the film was released with merchandise that is more important to the world of video games. In 1984, 2 modules for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons were released based on the Conan films. Those are Conan Unchained and Conan Against Darkness. Also in 1984, Datasoft released Conan Hall of Volta to Apple II computers. This game has little to do with the film, but it does feature the iconic character in a platform game. It was designed by Eric Robinson and Eric Parker of SE Software. In 1984, Sinclair Research discontinued the ZX81 computer. Originally released in 1981, the British computer system did prove to be successful. However, with the advent of the more popular and more powerful ZX Spectrum computer, the ZX81's days were numbered. It sold roughly 1.5 million units. In 1984, Hayao Nakayama and David Rosen negotiated a management buyout of Sega's Japanese division. The two executives got backing from Japanese software company, the CSK Corporation. Rosen was the president of Sega Enterprises Incorporated, but announced his resignation effective January 1st, 1984. He was replaced by Jeffrey Rockless. In 1984, though, with Gulf and Western, Sega's parent company, selling off its secondary businesses, Nakayama and Rosen were able to purchase Sega Japanese's assets for roughly $38 million, just under $109 million in 2022. The head of CSK Corporation, Isao Okawa, became chairman, while Nakayama became CEO of Sega Enterprises Limited. In 1984, Casio discontinued the PV-1000. Originally released in October 1983 in Japan, the PV-1000 proved to be a failure for Casio, lasting just a number of months. Only 13 games were released for the console, with 2 additional games developed but never released. That will do it for the honorable mentions of 1984 for now. My name is Baller Scuba. This has been Video Games Over Time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video when we try not to panic.